Hello there. This is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. I'm going to be speaking with you today about my new favorite topic. That, of course, is Narcissistic Abuse Syndrome. The topic of the video is 50 symptoms of Narcissistic Abuse Syndrome. So, I sat down, I was sitting in a hot tub, and I had an idea. How about if I just list all the symptoms? I bet there's about 30 of them. So I titled my document 30 Symptoms of Narcissistic Abuse Syndrome. But I just kept thinking of more. So there are a lot of symptoms to this very complex and very misunderstood disorder, and I'm going to go through them. Honestly, I think there's only one of the 50 that I haven't experienced personally, so I'm talking from personal research here. Let me define narcissistic abuse syndrome first, and that is if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, somebody with borderline personality disorder, somebody with antisocial personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, any of these. Another word is used a lot is psychopath. Psychopaths aren't just Hannibal Lecter in the movies. It's everyday people who you would never suspect was a dangerous bad actor. And I discovered this myself by being in a relationship with somebody with antisocial personality disorder. So here's the symptoms. And the reason I wanted to make this video is I spent seven and a half months walking around in the darkness, and nobody told me what I had. Nobody knew. They knew I had PTSD, but that didn't quite cover it. They knew I'd been involved with a dangerous person, but that didn't quite cover it. So here's the 50 symptoms. I'm sharing them with you because if you've been discarded, is the term they use, in a grand finale, a well thought out, dramatic, a particularly vicious way to end things. If you've been through that with a bad actor, with a sociopath, a psychopath, then you have been abused. And these, you will find yourself in these symptoms. Why are these symptoms present? I don't know. But I've gotten on the forum with psychopathfree.com, and I've listened to a lot of videos by a lot of people, and these are consistent attributes that people have who've sustained complex PTSD from interacting with a sociopath or a psychopath. So here we go. Number one is a whole bunch of crying. You will never cry so much. Your whole reality is shattered. There's a shattering of your heart. And you just can't believe that the person who was so good at telling you that they loved you and sometimes acting like they loved you, they were a whole nother human being who actually probably hated you and wanted to see you suffer. So cry. I'm all for it. I've cried millions and millions of tears since the 26th day of April. But knowing the truth helps too. Knowing what you got the truth will set you free. And I'm telling you, go through and listen to these symptoms and see if some of it don't stick. The second thing is a term that I've heard on many of the videos, and that is identity erosion, where this bad actor, this person without a conscience, they steadily, by put downs and abandonments and cruelty and harshness, what happens is your sense of self gets eroded. 7.5 months ago, I thought I had a pretty good sense of who I was and how I was wired and how I was put together and who I was. And then 3 months into it, I don't have a clue who I am. So identity erosion. Number 3, exhaustion that I can't even put into words. Exhaustion that your soul and your spirit is weary and overwhelmed. Exhaustion where you don't want to get out of bed. Exhaustion where you don't want to exercise. Exhaustion. I, for years, have done a men's group at my practice on Tuesday night. And I used to see 12 hours of clients on a Tuesday and then go do my group. And not think twice about it. But I came back from the treatment I was in, and if I saw 3 clients, I was exhausted, ready to take a nap. It got to 7:30 when group started. I needed to go home and go to bed. I could not go to that group. I just simply didn't have the energy. So exhaustion. Number 4 is panic attacks. These are awful. This woman I was involved with told me about many restaurants that she had been with her lover, and I'd pass one of those restaurants and I would have a panic attack. She told me, I'm not going to go into the details because they're gross, but she had sexual acting out in a red truck, and every time a red truck would go by, my heart would start beating. I would feel panicky. I would feel like I was going to jump out of my skin. I felt unsafe. So panic attacks. Number 5 is cognitive dissonance, or ruminating about, because you don't know what the hell happened to you, and you're trying to replay it and rethink it and come up with a paradigm that actually describes your experience. And if you're like me, you're not going to find one until you find Narcissistic Abuse Syndrome. So cognitive dissonance, constantly obsessing about what happened and rolling it over in your mind, writing stuff down, writing letters to your therapist, or journaling. There's so many different parts of this cognitive dissonance, but it's torturous. It's hellish. You can't let go because nothing makes sense. Well, this right here that I'm telling you, it makes sense. Number 6, my brain hurt. I had so much cognitive dissonance that my brain hurt. Number 7, it's sort of similar to the cognitive dissonance, but it's being on a mission to search for what it was that was true, what it was that actually happened to you. And reading books, scouring the internet, going to therapists. There's so many different ways to search for truth, and you'll constantly be doing it until you find it. Number 8 is claustrophobia. I didn't realize how bad I was damaged, and on the 4th week after I experienced this trauma, I went on a cruise with my daughter. That's a picture of her up there, one of my daughters, and it was a horrible idea. I needed to be in a treatment center. When I was on the cruise ship, I was surrounded by thousands of people, and I would get claustrophobia. The first day when you would do the muster, and they funneled us into a room, and they wanted us to sit next to each other, and I had to tell the guy, I can't do that. I can't sit in a crowd right now. Can I sit over here by myself? And he said yes. So you might very well have the symptom of claustrophobia. Number 9, brain fog, confusion, just not being able to concentrate. Number 10, fear of engulfment. When I was on this cruise, sometimes we'd be at a table, and one night there was the lady who was just talkative, and she was just chop, 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 chop. And I felt engulfed by her words. I felt violated by the volume of her words. So I had a form of claustrophobia, just a fear of being engulfed even by words. Number 11 would be, you look at the situation and you think it's this, but then the next week later you flip over here and it's this. Sort of a flipping back and forth between over-idealizing the perpetrator and devaluing them or treating them like they're the devil. They're not the devil, but they're bad news. But there will be, in your efforts to figure it out, there will be a flipping back and forth. Well, I don't think they're that bad. Well, they're the devil. Oh, no, they're not that bad. So you'll flip back and forth. Number 12, you'll feel crazy. You'll probably act crazy. You'll probably have people think that you're crazy. They might think that the perpetrator is this crazy and you're this crazy, because that's what it looks like. It's like they set you on fire and then you started screaming. Why? Because you're on fire. And then they and other people say, oh man, that dude's crazy. Number 13 is flashbacks. It's been sneaking up on 8 months, and I was playing basketball yesterday with a young man, a fella who's a friend of one of my good friends, a son of one of my good friends. And I just started to, a lady walked by who looked like my former fiance, and I started to have flashbacks into hurtful thoughts. And I had a hard time focusing on playing basketball. So flashbacks. Number 14 is you will be infused with anxiety. Lots of anxiety throughout your system. It'll just crackle through your system. Number 15, severe depression. What you have isn't depression. It's a profound wound. You're wounded, but it'll look and feel like depression. You'll probably have difficulty sleeping. Number 16. Number 17 is suicidal thoughts. The pain of this and the confusion of this and the lostness of this is so huge. You'll think of killing yourself not because you want to die, you just want the pain to stop. Number 18, you'll be highly addicted to the perpetrator. Usually, one of the people that I listened to her video, Melanie Tanya Evans, said that there's actually a physical component in your brain that happens where these little peptides, in your brain attach to that person in your brain, and you become highly addicted to the perpetrator. Number 19 is just a lack of joy. All the things that gave you joy, like for me, writing, playing basketball, riding my motorcycle, watching movies, none of them did anything for me at all after a while, after this, because I was just undone. I was broken. Number 20 is shaking hands. I would keep my hands down while I was making videos because honestly my hands were trembling until about a month and a half ago. I could barely type. Number 21 is a feeling in your soul of emptiness and probably in your home of emptiness. In my case, I built my life around this person for 6.5 years, and she was my significant other, the person I went to movies with, went to dinner with, planned the holidays around, and now, boom, she's gone. And so there is a sense of abrupt emptiness. Plus, if you have abandonment issues, you have to work on developing more of a strong sense of self, because without that strong sense of self, you're really super needy and feeling that emptiness. Number 22 is a loss of appetite. I just didn't care about food. I was just in too much pain, and I've been getting better, and I've gained 10 pounds. I've got to watch that. But some people, when they're in a lot of pain, eat a lot. So it's one or the other. For me, I just didn't care about food at all. I lost 53 pounds. Number 23, oversensitivity to noises and oversensitivity to bright lights. I went on a trip to Walgreens in a van with my fellow inpatient treatment patients the first day I got to Milestones Treatment Center in Tennessee near Nashville. And I was horribly traumatized by that van trip. They were playing music really loud, and I should have spoken up. And then we went to a Walgreens that was in a very busy intersection, and there was cars everywhere, and red trucks everywhere, and people beeping the horn. And hell cannot be as uncomfortable as that van trip was. It was just too much stimulation. Number 24, I call it being hyperkinetic. I don't know if that's a word, but let me explain it. You're just really hyper. For the first 2 months, 3 months of my therapy, I couldn't sit in a chair. If I was doing therapy, I was pacing the room like a tiger, pacing back and forth and back and forth. I had this heart, ceramic heart thing that I just used as sort of a symbol of my heart, and I held it in my hand, and I'd walk back and forth in Paul Hartman, my therapist's office, and touch the wall and walk back and touch the wall. I could not sit down during group therapy at on-site. They gave me some things to put in my hand to squeeze, and I would sit there and squeeze that to work out the hyperkinetic energy, and I would pace the room. And I would work out first thing in the morning and then run in the afternoon because I had so much kinetic energy. Now, how can you have a ton of energy and have fatigue? Well, the fatigue is more when you sit down and do a task. Like a lot of times I would see one client as a therapist and I'd be exhausted afterwards. Where are we at here? Number 25, easily startled. Very easily startled. Number 26, tons of shame and self-loathing, embarrassment. Number 27, your body will be really, really fragile. Number 28, here's an interesting one, and I've heard this from Jackson McKenzie, who wrote the book Psychopath Free, and I've heard it from 5 or 6 different people who've responded to my videos. Pain in your chest. The pain is in your chest and in your belly, and it almost feels like there's a physical wound. Some of the folks from responding to my videos said it was so tangible they thought they had heart problems. Several of them had to be treated for, or at least assessed for some kind of heart problem because something was going on in their chest, a pain in their chest. Number 29, nightmares, just bad dreams about the bad actor. Number 30, avoidance of anything that would remind you of that person. My fiance started hanging out at Buffalo Wild Wings. So every time I pass a Buffalo Wild Wings, I had a little mini panic attack. I think if you gave me $1,000, I would go in a Buffalo Wild Wings I'd probably have dinner there for $1,000, but if it was $100, $300, no way. I just I associate Buffalo Wild Wings with torturous pain and abandonment, and I just can't do it, especially the particular one that she would hang out at. So avoiding anything that would remind you of that person. Number 31, not remembering what happened early on. I've talked with people about the first 3 weeks of my experience of this PTSD, and they would tell me I did things, and I said, I didn't do that. Come on. And they're like, yeah, you did. And then another person was there. They're like, yeah, you did do that. I said, I don't remember. Number 32, early on, you probably have some rage. I told this story in some of my early videos, but when I would play basketball that first month, if somebody came down the lane, I was going to toss them 10 feet, and they're going to be on their ass, you know. I wasn't mad at them. I was just mad. And the basketball gave me a place to act out my anger. And I wasn't real popular. A couple fellas even wanted to fight me, and I was just like, please, bring it. I'll probably hurt you, dude. There's just a rage level that isn't who you are, but it's who you are when you're raw with narcissistic abuse symptoms. Number 33, hopelessness. Just a profound, enveloping, dark sense of hopelessness. Number 34, being on guard for danger. If I was walking down the street and somebody started walking up behind me, I would cross the street. And it could have been, you know, a little kid, but I still didn't feel safe. I just was constantly scanning everywhere for danger. Number 35, a lack of trust. You know, it's hard to trust people after being violated like this. Number 36, shutting down sexually. It almost feels like sexual abuse, that this person was intimate with you, but then intimate so much with this other person or many people, and that you're so wounded and hurt, the last thing you want to do is be sexual with anybody. Number 37, grieving the loss of your innocence. It's like, before I was like, yeah, you know, the world's a pretty safe place, and, you know, there's not bad people out there. You know, grieving that. Number 38, the word unhinged. Jackson McKenzie uses that word a lot, and I've used it since day one with this. I feel psychologically unhinged. Number 39, disassociation, where you just sort of psychologically go bye-bye and you're just not connected to yourself, and it's unconscious, and it's a disconnection from yourself. Number 40, needing lots of time alone, lots of solitude. You tend to isolate. 41, there's a fight or flight response. When you get around people who don't understand, and what they want to do is interrupt you, get in your space, tell you what to do, shame you, attack you verbally, you can fight or you can flight. And so I experienced that because that's sort of how my family acts. And so in one case, I've got a family member who's aggressively unsupportive and attacking and unsafe. And my flight response is I just block their phone number so I don't have to be abused. So fight or flight. Number 42, this is the one of the 50 that I haven't experienced, and that is being numb. I wish I had experienced being numb, because numb would have beat the heck out of, you know, feeling torturously miserable. Number 43, here's an important one. A sense of helplessness and powerlessness. Helplessness and powerlessness. You just feel so powerless. It's like all this bad stuff was going on and you didn't have a clue. And then after it goes down, you really don't have any power to do anything to hold the perpetrator accountable. I'm going to jump to the number 50 here, and that is destruction of property. If you have rage and you feel powerless, and there's an object that represents this person's acting out, you might destroy it. That's part of my avoidance thing too. As I've lived in my home where this woman lived for 6.5 years, I keep running across some of her belongings in a drawer or in a closet, and I throw them away because it's just not, I'm on a no contact regime with her, so I can't contact her to give them to her. And they bring up the trauma for me. So the best thing I can do is just get them out of my house, and I just toss them away. I don't care how much they cost. They're going in the trash can because that's part of the avoiding of the pain, part of the PTSD. So number 44, you're going to be vulnerable to people who want to rescue you. So be careful to only let safe people in, because you're going to be so pitiful and so broken, people want to scoop you up and adopt you. Number 45, you're going to feel psychologically raped and defiled. And that's what it feels like. The trauma, the betrayal, the lying, the abandonment, the infidelity, it feels like rape. It feels like soul murder. Number 46, this isn't something that I've spent a lot of time with, but you might have fantasies of revenge. You might picture in your mind some way to have this person, experience some kind of consequence or some kind of negative thing. Number 47, you're going to be pretty moody. Number 48, your initiative to do things will just be paralyzed. I remember my hot tub was a mess and needed drained and had the water regulated with chemicals, and I was overwhelmed. I just couldn't do it, and a friend of mine came over and helped me, and I didn't have the initiative to do much. So paralysis of initiative, and this would be number 50. You're going to have impulse control problems. You're going to be so wounded and so fragile and so angry that one day I actually one of my impulse things was I felt bad about myself, so I went out and I didn't buy a new pair of glasses, I bought 4 new pair of glasses, very expensive glasses. So that can get you into some financial difficulties. So there you have it, 50 symptoms of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abuse is a very real thing. And if you've experienced it, please look for a therapist under the term narcissistic abuse and associate it with this list of symptoms, and only go to a therapist that has those, because most therapists don't have a clue what this is. So I hope this has been helpful, and I just encourage you to just keep on keeping on, and you will get better. I used to hate when people said that to me, but 7.5 months in, and I'm a lot better, and I'm getting better, more better every day. So if you haven't visited our website, I encourage you to visit familytreecounseling.com. I have 5 good books there for you to purchase. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. YouTube rocks. Family Tree Counseling on YouTube. God bless.